We are gathered here for the fourth edition of the MasterCLaaS lecture series. The spirit of MasterCLaaS embodies building ports, building competencies. This lecture series has been a potent tool for sharing the thoughts of leading visionaries, and today's lecture promises to be no different. I'm delighted to see not just our LPI staff who are present in person over here and have also joined online, but also distinguished representatives from renowned think tanks like Brief, CUTS, ICRER, and Nicor Associates joining us for this session. Your presence here adds immense value to our discussion and underscores the importance of collaborative efforts in our shared vision. The theme of today's lecture, how to increase efficient throughput in ports, is critical for us at the Land Ports Authority of India. Efficient throughput is not just a matter of operational excellence, it is the backbone of economic vitality and a crucial factor in our nation's infrastructure development. The topic resonates deeply with our continuous effort to enhance our port operations, streamline processes, and ultimately contribute to the larger goal of national progress. Today, we are honored to have with us an eminent speaker who brings a wealth of knowledge and experience. Now, without further ado, let me introduce our distinguished speaker, Mr. S.K. Pathak. Mr. Pathak was Secretary General of FICCI till June 2024. Before joining FICCI, Mr. Pathak held prominent positions both in the private sector and the government. His career spans 19 years in corporate world with giants like ICICI, L&T, and IDFC, and 17 years as an IS officer in Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh. In 2022, he transitioned to the non-profit sector as Director and Professor of Practice at the Indian School of Public Policy. Mr. Pathak is one of the few Indians with experience across government, business, and academia. His diverse background and expertise in public policy, infrastructure, and finance makes him an unparalleled authority on today's topic. His industry affiliations are equally impressive, with roles in G20's B20 Task Force, BRICS Business Council, and FICCI Infrastructure Committee. Mr. Pathak has over 40 publications to his name and has extensive international exposure. He holds an MBA from IIM Calcutta. His accolades also include being the best all-rounder officer trainee at Lavasna, Missouri. And he is a passionate environmentalist and a wildlifer.
I think you have already given a very detailed introduction, but still, our LPI is a great pleasure to host our honorable guest today, who carries a wealth of experience and knowledge with him. Other than being a very distinguished personality which has cross-sector experience, he's also a very close friend and a batchmate. So that is an additional incentive for me to welcome him here today. And we look forward to hearing from you. This organization, LPI, is a relatively recent organization, but still trying to push itself into the league of its much older and much more established cousins. And we have made some headway. We still are quite far away from the target that we have set for ourselves. But that target, in course, always requires review and course correction. People of your eminence who have wide experience of what is happening in terms of development in this country, do that part for us. Do the course correction, give the thoughts, valuable thoughts, which helps us understand what we are doing in larger perspective and take steps for that course correction. So most welcome today, and we look forward, all of us look forward to your talk today. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Aditya Mishra ji, Chairman and a very good friend. One of the outstanding people in our batch, if I may say so. Thank you, senior LPI colleagues and ladies and gentlemen. I actually want to introduce you to a very, very simple technique, because typically what used to happen was when speakers come, they talk about what they want, whether it is relevant for the audience or not. I wanted to change that paradigm and ask you to participate in a small 1 minute exercise. So I'll ask for 1 minute of your time. All you have to do is pick up your phone and there will be this question. What is the one question you would like to be answered by the end of today's masterclass? The second question's answer will not be shown to anyone. The first question's answers everyone will see. So we will get a sense of what your audience wants to. On the bottom right hand, number of answers would be shown. And answers are completely anonymous because the first question is for your benefit. The second question is for my benefit.
Sure.
And that is my learning from all of you, which is the reason why I have come here. Learning has to be both ways. So now we are moving to the next question, which is my learning from you. What is your one suggestion to make Indian logistics better? Your suggestion. What is logistics? Getting a person or a product from place A to place B in the quickest time in the least possible cost. So broadly there are three kinds of questions. One is relating to land ports. One is relating to India's trade. And one is relating to personal gyan. Why is trade important is a very easy answer. We had a FICCI delegation to Washington DC for the annual fund bank meeting, and then we had a think tank inviting us for a specific deliberation which was all about business. And a World Bank person said, why is the regional trade between India and its neighbors the lowest in any region of the world? Did you know this? In all the regions of the world, the trade between countries is much higher than what India does with our neighbors. And there are historical reasons, whatever it is. But it is a big priority for all of us, including in business and in government and the think tanks and intellectuals who are here, to see how we can integrate higher trade with our neighbors. And the reason is that earlier our neighbors, particularly our land border neighbors, used to think that India is big brother and they used to be hostile to us. So if you went to Nepal, you went to Bhutan, you went to Sri Lanka, you went to Bangladesh, they used to say, what has happened in the last 15 years, 10 years, is that India's growth has taken off. And because India is growing so fast, our neighbors are saying, we will grow with you. This is a big change. For those of you who've been in the space for more than 20, 30 years, you will appreciate that this change has come. And different trade ministers of all the countries are talking about stepping up trade with India. Of course, we would want much more exports to our neighbors than importing from them. That goes without saying. So according to an excellent presentation that the chairman took me through, last year's trade was 70,952 crores, 70,952 crores, out of which 55,416 crores, 55,000 crores was export from India. Now if you really look at this trade number, it is nowhere in comparison to what we export to even a single country like the United Kingdom, or to Europe, or to US, which are our largest markets. So why is trade important? A, because we want to make more money. And B, because we want to integrate better with our land neighbors. I'll give you now a private sector perspective. Private sector is very, very simple. One of the questions that was asked. So the private sector has only two things to bother about. One is to increase income. Second is to decrease expense. Very simple. Very simple. Then we build in all this jargon, all these MBAs from IIMs and all that. They come and create jargon. But ultimately, the private sector will not do anything except what increases revenue. It will not do anything except what decreases cost. And part of it is, even gender sensitization will increase revenue and reduce cost because your employees will be more motivated to work for you. And therefore your turnover and attrition will be lower. So you're reducing cost and increasing revenue because If someone has worked with my organization for 20 years, they are much more effective because they know what the organization is all about. So in that context, logistics is a large cost for businesses. Suppose I am making garments, suppose I am growing pulses, suppose I am exporting shoes, suppose I am exporting petroleum. Whatever is my cost of production and whatever is my realization, which is the sales price minus cost of production, the additional cost is logistics. And logistics actually in India is or was very, very high, both in terms of cost and in terms of time. And while we are talking about LPAI, let me give you a similar example. In 2016, trucks crossing from UP into Bihar used to have a dwell time of 2 days, 3 days. Koi mai baap nahi. Then we talked about border integrated checkposts. And then the movement started getting quicker. But once GST was introduced, the entire stoppage went away. So a truck that used to take 9 days from Coimbatore to Ludhiana takes 2 days now. The European Union is much ahead of us. There is no check on any truck going from France to Italy. But now the sensitivity. The sensitivity is that LPI is not under the Ministry of Road Transport and Highways or the Ministry of Shipping and Ports. It is under the Department of Border Management under the Ministry of Home Affairs. And if there is one thing that I'll aim to communicate to all of you is the mindset at a seaport or an airport is very different from a port of the Land Ports Authority of India. Because in the seaport or an airport, you are not suspecting every person of causing threat to India's territorial integrity. Whereas I would venture to dare to suggest that the DNA of the organization that came from Border Management and Ministry of Home Affairs would be, we want to make sure that security is paramount. Now, there is another entity that has been born out of the Department of Ministry of Home Affairs, which is an independent ministry now. Any guesses? It used to be part of the Ministry of Home Affairs. Now it is an independent ministry. Any guesses? It's a tribal ministry. So those of you who have long memories, the tribal ministry was part of the Ministry of Home Affairs, and then it was separated as a ministry. And now the entire focus is not on internal security but tribal development. I would actually compliment Mr. Chairman Aditya Mishra ji and the entire team that you have reduced the dwell time from 110 hours to something like 11 hours. So if I am a private sector person, what do I want? My truck should not get stuck. As quickly as possible, I should be able to cross the border. I went to Dauki many years ago, and the line of trucks and the lack of movement of those trucks was visible. And now I am, in your presentation, I was delighted to see that in 2023, you have a world-class land port. And this is the kind of change that will lead us to Viksit Bharat. And obviously, design influences behavior. It's an old saying. If you have good design, the behavior of the stakeholders changes. So if you have some 20-year-ago border checkpost, which is a dingy, traffic jam, dirty place, versus what you have created at Dauki, for instance, people's behavior will change. Not just the traders' behavior, even your own team and employees' behavior. And compliments again, because you have invested a lot in sensitizing and capacity building of your people. A lot of you in the room would probably know much more about land ports. But what I do know is that the trading community will realize when the cost of compliance is less than the cost of non-compliance. So, any business person will say that if I can get away with it, I will try to get away with it. But when that business person thinks that the cost of complying is less than the cost of non-complying, then behavior will change. It is a simple example. You stop at a traffic light or you jump the traffic light. If you know that the cost of complying with the traffic light is lower, and if you jump, you'll get a 500 rupee fine, you'll start complying. So in that, how can you use both attitudes and technology and processes I know you have had capacity building on data exchange, process streamlining, coordinated management, and online cargo management system softwares and digital payments. But this is for 55,406 crores, 416 crores. My question is, how can we increase it to 10 times this? Because if India can export so much to North America and Europe, why can't it export it to Bhutan, to Nepal, to Bangladesh, even if those countries are slightly annoyed that they are importing much more than they are exporting to us. We have our northern neighbor. We have the same problem with that northern neighbor. We import far too much from them, we export far too little. But as India grows into a 5 trillion economy and beyond, it is time for our exports to step up. So, bottom line, passenger and cargo facilitation. So this is the overall reason why trade matters and the reason why LPAI matters. You all are doing a very, 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 very important job. And let me just spend another minute on the difference between a seaport and a land port. A seaport is invariably transfer of baggage or luggage or cargo or passengers from one mode to the other. You will unload from a ship, you will load either on a railway or on road transport. Yeah? For containerized traffic, for instance. And you know that most of the global trade that happens overseas now is containerized traffic, except for liquids and coal and other. But in the land port, most of your trade is not yet on containers. It's in pallets or it's in loose form, which is actually more difficult to handle. I hope to see the BBIN transport agreement where actually I can take a truck from Delhi to Dhaka. And sometimes it has happened, but not very often. Ideally, we should work towards that outcome. So if a truck can go from France to Italy, that truck should be able to go from India to its neighbors. But the difference again between cargo and passengers is that cargo does not have social media to ventilate their grievances. Whereas if a passenger is made to wait, they will put one Insta reel and everyone will start asking you or they'll put one X or Twitter. So there is some more sensitivity to be followed while dealing with passengers. And I would very much request Mr. Aditya Mishra to share what his strategies are for passengers vis-a-vis cargo. And the use of technology will threaten some of your stakeholders. So the customs house agents who have been used to, last 40 years we have done this, the clearing agencies, last 40 years we have done this, suddenly their jobs will become easier because everything is possible on my mobile phone, but they will see it as a threat because their services are going to be less and less required. So disintermediation will happen and the trader will not need the customs agent because the trader will be able to upload everything directly. It's like faceless assessment in income tax. How many people pay income tax in the room? Please raise your hands. Yeah? So you know faceless assessment has done away with the services of chartered accountants to go and meet your tax officer. Same thing is going to happen here. And the more it happens, the better. So in terms of throughput, which is the topic today, I'm trying to look at passenger throughput, I'm trying to look at cargo throughput. And typically when someone comes as a passenger, there's an immigration and there's a security. Not much else, right? And the security takes care of the x-rays, immigration takes care of valid travel documents. What else can LPAI do? And I saw a lovely slide saying, I'm going to put up stalls for medical tourism. And so many medical establishments would love to say, you're coming to Tripura, come to my hospital. And that is a revenue model for you. So to give you a bad example, you know, airports in India, I was there in the first inauguration of the Mumbai, Delhi, Hyderabad, Bangalore airport, and the industry leader said, what is an airport? It is a very, very nice highway connected to a mall and hotel. So he says, I am going to earn more from the mall and hotel than from the plane's landing. So as you know, every flight that lands at Delhi airport has to pay landing charges. and that's called air revenue, or rather air side and city side. But the city side revenue is everything before you cross security. And if you look at the revenue model of airports, actually the city side revenue is much higher now than the air side revenue. An airport like Boston in the US, 60% of its revenue comes from parking. Also, they don't have drivers ki missed call de denge, gaadi le aao. Yeah? So, how can LPAI think of monetizing these brilliant facilities that you're creating? And that, because I have worked in the government long enough, does not come with the government mindset. I hope you're engaging some people from outside government, madam, to think of how you can monetize these malls and hotels. In your case, the highway is not like a runway, but. And finally, just to conclude on this first line, how can you do convergence with other government schemes and other government initiatives? Today I met the Secretary Rural Development, sir. And as you know, Prime Minister's focusing on women-led development, not developing women, women-led development. Under the NRLM, which is the National Rural Livelihoods Mission, there is a concept called Lakpati Didis. How can your land port take a radius of, let's say, 50 kilometers and encourage these Lakpati Didis to export and use the facilities of the Land Port Authority? There is a very strong focus on part of the Government of India, particularly the Commerce and Industries Ministry, on increasing exports. Piyush Goyal ji monitors it on a monthly basis. And we have been, as FICCI, part of many of such meetings. But the Cabinet Secretary is chairing the National Trade Facilitation Committee, right? So you can see the importance of your work that is happening, and sooner rather than later, all your activities will be under the Pradhan Mantri Gati Shakti portal. Those of you who have not looked at the Gati Shakti portal, please do. And there's a ULIP, a Unified Logistics Interface. Yeah? So the quicker LPAI is fully integrated with that, the better. In terms of future growth opportunities, I see a whole lot of opportunity in the Daranga port that is coming up, land port, because Gelefu city is going to be driven by the King of Bhutan. That's a huge opportunity, Daranga. Right now, Jaigaon is the lifeline of Bhutan, because that's where most of the logistics and commodities go through. But Gelefu will give a huge boost to Daranga. I see More developing once the trilateral highway is fully operational, and this, entire SASEC corridor, as it's referred to, will become much more operational. I see Sabroom in Tripura emerging as a huge transit point, because the Matabari deep water seaport will be the quickest. We had a National Executive Council meeting of FICCI in Guwahati. We got the Japanese ambassador, and we did a simple calculation that from Agartala to the sea through Sabroom will be 70 kilometers, and if you go across, it's 600 kilometers. So Matabari is going to actually be revolutionary for the Northeast's economy. And remember, I said this in 2024. It's going to be ready by 2027. Experts in the room can correct me. Doki, we already talked about. I hope that Petropol will soon start allowing trucks to go through both ways instead of transshipments. And of course, India and Nepal have open borders, but trade is a different cup of tea. I would like to ask Aditya Mishra ji, what were the 3 or 4 focus areas that you undertook to reduce this dwell time from 110 hours to less than 14 hours?
No, so I'm sure all the people involved here are, so I would suggest audience to give some thoughts.
Really? How did you manage this? This is actually, this is headline news. Big case studies should be done on this. 110 hours to less than 14 hours. How did you manage? What were the top 3 things, in your opinion, that made this happen? Please.
So digitization.
Digitization, number 1, absolutely right. What else?
Suvidha portal has been
Suvidha portal, yes. What else? Organization and teamwork, absolutely. What else?
Better infrastructure.
Better infrastructure, yes, absolutely.
Sir, connectivity is better now, sir.
Connectivity is better now, sir, absolutely.
Sir, coordination, better coordination between all the agencies over there.
Better coordination for the agencies at the land port. Absolutely. I saw a list of the stakeholders, absolutely.
And above all, leadership.
Above all, leadership.
Very, very important.
That is so important. You're right. You're right.
We
So,
need champions for any significant change.
so champions make a difference. So maybe we should put together a case study, sir, with your permission. Already? Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. 2023. Excellent. I'd love to read a copy of that case. Can commodity diversification improve throughput, and how to incorporate geopolitical landscape in consideration? See, Doki, for instance, when the British divided India and Bangladesh, they basically drew a line where the mountains end. Anything beyond that in the plains is Bangladesh. So Doki has a very peculiar traffic component. It's all boulders from the hills going to the plains to create gitti and aggregate, right? So geographically, you will have specific items for specific land port authorities. You will not have that kind of thing in Atari, for instance. Limestone will become. So diversification happens when beyond the natural resources you move into manufactured goods. Beyond agricultural commodities, you move into manufactured goods. And I hope that their incentive to produce for the Bangladesh market, for the Nepal market, for the Bhutan market goes up. Guidance for making my life easier in a holistic level, very simple. Don't worry, be happy. What measures can be taken to improve coordination among various stakeholders? I would suggest Mentimeter. Because very often our small little ego issues come in the way of effective coordination. And you have already managed effective coordination as was said, which is why you're able to deliver this success. But something which is completely anonymous, like this, is a good pressure cooker release valve. How are environment sustainability goals influencing port operations and efficiency? Look, if it reduces dwell time, that is the most environment friendly thing. What is the point of a truck waiting for 3 days when it can go through in 13 hours? That is environmentally sustainable. Is privatization of government undertakings better medium management? If hypothetically done, would it be a boon or bane? I would say, given that you're part of the Ministry of Home Affairs, and this is all about border management, we should definitely not think of LPAI in the private sector. For that matter, the NHAI is not in the private sector, it built great highways. Given your special circumstances, how your strong industry interface during your industry has to say on your expertise in logistics. Look, I was CEO of a company called L&T Infrastructure Projects Development. Yeah? We promoted in public-private partnership the Bangalore Airport, the Hyderabad Metro, transmission line projects, drinking water projects, highway projects. And because of highways, and we used to collect $1 million of toll every day. Just to give a small example, when I joined the company, the electronic toll percentage was 12%. When I left, from 12 it became 98. So the business process of this company when I joined was all about collecting 7.5 crore rupees per day, putting it in a locker and depositing it into the bank. That was the business process. When I left the company, it was about making sure that bank is irrelevant. Make sure that your FASTag systems, electronic robust backup is working. So in many ways, this digital payments has converted your land port authority's business model also. From the logistics point of view, you remember going through toll booths and saying, my God, half an hour wait, 1 hour wait. Today it's not even more than 3-4 minutes because of FASTag. So what is the aha moment for LPA, the Land Ports Authority, which can further contribute to reducing dwell time? And Pradhan Mantri Gati Shakti Master Plan, I would sincerely urge whoever has not gone at the website, have a look at the PM Gati Shakti Plan. Role of private sector organizations like FICCI in enhancing regional trade in South Asia. We have partnerships with the leading national trade associations of Bangladesh, of Nepal, of Bhutan, of Sri Lanka, also in Nepal, also in Pakistan, but we have given up on SAARC, SAARC, we are just focusing on BIMSTEC. How can we increase revenue of ICPs and reduce the expenditure? Digitalization to reduce expenditure and monetization of space to increase revenue. How should we start land-based trade with China? Now, here I would actually say my answer would have been very different before Galwan. After Galwan, I think the government of India has taken a very conscious decision, and as responsible citizens, otherwise, before independence, the trade across the Himalayas through high passes like Unta Dhura and Kingri Bingrila used to be substantial. And those of you who are interested, there's a lovely book by John K.E.A.Y., John K., Himalaya, which he published in 2022, where he talks about the kind of cross-border trade we had with Tibet. So there was extensive trade with Tibet, but that trade has sort of fallen off. How can we increase our productivity in such a remote location? Sir, this is actually a question for all of you in headquarters. Because if I just go and sit on the other side of this video conference, they will say that these headquarter people don't know the challenges that we have. They sit in air-conditioned offices in Delhi, and we have to do all the hard work, and we don't get any support from the headquarters. And some of you in the headquarters would say, those people sitting in the ports can do this, can do this, can do this. So how do you increase productivity in such a remote location? Again, my answer would be use digitization and technology wherever possible. Today, with video conferencing facilities, there's no bar on increasing productivity wherever you are. Future of e-vehicles in international trade. E-vehicles, the only problem is range anxiety. As long as I know I can charge, I have an e-vehicle, electric vehicle, which I use in Delhi. But if I take it to, let's say, Jogbani or Petrapol, will there be charging facilities? I would say that in the next 5 years, I'll be able to drive on any highway in India because there'll be enough charging stations. The Ministry of Heavy Industries is working hard on that. How LPAI can enhance revenue at initial stage and be independent on your own? So right now, most of your money would come from budgetary subventions.
Most of the infrastructure is capital.
So you see, there is a difference between banana and chalana, between constructing and operating. The construction money will come from the India's consolidated fund, the budget. LPI should never say that I'll take a loan from State Bank of India and make a port. But once the port is operational, then you should actually have an operational profit, meaning your operational costs should be less than your operational income. And there I'll happily share more with the chairman later. Gaps in efficiency in Indian ports as compared to global counterparts. This is a long answer, but I would not talk about seaports. That ship turnaround time is X in this port, Y in this port. I'll talk about the land border between the US and Canada. Those of you who actually transited through a land border between the US and Canada, did you know that Canada is rich because it's next door to the US? And the kind of situation that I saw in Docky maybe 5-10 years ago would never be conceivable in the US-Canada border. France and Italy, there's no border. But in the US-Canada, so maybe some good examples from within Asia. How is the Land Port Authority of two adjoining countries in ASEAN would be an interesting exercise. How can LPI be more interactive with good government organizations? I think the top 4 or 5 people here, they're doing a fine job. How important is standardization of processes for operational efficiency at land ports? So one challenge I'm leaving you with, sir, is how can you promote containerization for land-based trade? Because that solves a lot of problems. All of you who know trade know that pallets are made and pallets are stuffed into the container and the container is locked. Right now, I don't know what is the percentage of containers in the traffic throughput. Hardly any, less than 0.5%. How can you go as big as seaports in terms of cargo handle, the blunt answer is you'll never be able to compete with seaports, because seaports are about very, very large volumes. And whether we have the best logistics in the world, moving a container from Delhi to Navi Mumbai is going to cost more than transporting that container from Navi Mumbai to Amsterdam. It's just a matter of volumes. And that volume I don't see emerging in land-based trade for a long time. What are the key factors that attract private investment in land port development? Simple: make more money, spend less. If you can contribute to either making more money or spending less, they'll come. And remember, I talked about Daranga. You should start planning from right now, saying that at least 500 new companies will set up shop in the Northeast, and they will look at sea-based exports to Matabari. What is the future of tech in ICP? I think the future of tech depends on the person who uses it, and I'm talking about AI also. Artificial intelligence is not going to take away jobs. People who don't use artificial intelligence are going to be out of a job. And yesterday I was having a meal with my IIM batchmate, who for the last 38 years has been working more as an engineer on upcoming trends and less as an MBA. And he is so clear that within the next 5 years, any company that's not using AI will go bust. LPAI, I'm sure, since AI is part of your name, should be ahead of the curve in using artificial intelligence. It's 4:31. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you. And finally, I request Secretary LPI to deliver the vote of thanks.
Good afternoon, everybody. I have Mr. Pathak sir and the Chairman LPI and all my colleagues. Somebody has said it very pertinently. The understanding of an issue is best understood when somebody explains it to you. And I can definitely say that today's lecture conveyed some very important points on which we should focus on, and a food for thought for all of us of integrating our programs with the greater schemes of the government is one task that we must be looking forward into. Digitalization, use of AI are pertinent, and LPI is working on them. That is part. And yes, the bigger challenge that lies ahead is how to increase and diversify, as questions are also being asked, to increase and diversify this trade across our land borders. These challenges are before you, and we are thankful to you, sir, that you have pointed them out in a very concrete way. And with these remarks, I'll warmly thank Mr. Pathak sir and the Chairman LPI and my colleagues for such a very good organized masterclass, and we hope to see you again, sir. Thanks a lot. Thank you.